In the Connecticut versus Valley case, it would certainly appear that the defense has a theory, and we're starting to see a little bit more of it. Hi, Tony DeWitt here. I'm a Missouri appellate attorney, retired, and I bring you a fresh perspective on the law without offering any legal advice. So pull up a chair. This is what we're discussing today. So I have had cases on this channel where I have been critical of the prosecution and I've been critical of the defense. This is one where I think I'm going to keep everybody happy. I have criticism of both. To give you a bit of an overview, again, essentially the state's case is this kid went to the car, got a knife, and came back, stabbed one person, killing him, and cut up 3 or 4 others. So he's on trial for assault and for murder. The defense's position in this is that there is an element of self-defense here. Now, whether that's being asserted in good faith or not, whether or not they really think they can make the self-defense argument, I'm not certain. But anything that they can do that will minimize the degree of culpability of their client is a good thing. Well, let's talk a little bit before we get into the testimony about what somebody has to establish in order to get themselves a self-defense verdict. First of all, they have to show that there was an imminent deadly threat. An imminent deadly threat is a threat that will produce death or extreme bodily harm, severe injury, that kind of thing. You can have a situation where the number of people attacking you creates this thing called a disparity of force, meaning when you have 10 people coming at you with, clubs, and you've only got, basically a firearm, you can certainly claim disparity of force if you have to use your firearm. But you can't do that if you are the aggressor. In other words, if you decide you're going to go pick a fight, and then they have more of them than they do of you, and you've misjudged this, the safest thing for you to do is get in your car and go the other way. And really, it doesn't matter if somebody calls you a chicken or not, because it's better to be a live chicken than a dead duck. Unfortunately, these guys did not use good common sense and stay out of this brouhaha. What they did was they stopped the car, they went back, they started to suffer the effects of bad judgment, and apparently Mr. Valley ran back to the car, got a knife, and then proceeded to engage in surgery without a license. And as a result, he wound up on trial for murder and assault. So the defense already has a huge hurdle. It either has to prove disparity of force, or it has to show that somebody in the group that was attacking him had a weapon. And I haven't heard any testimony to that effect yet. The other thing they have to do is they have to prove that he was in reasonable fear of his life in order for him to use that weapon that he had to defend himself. And then they have to show that he wasn't the aggressor. And the only way to do that is to show that he initiated the aggression at the house, and then he was going away, but unfortunately he stopped the car and came back toward the group. So again, he did not withdraw from the encounter, which is traditionally what's required in a self-defense scenario, and as a result, he is going to have a really hard time making that self-defense argument. But now, let's watch the prosecution here. You have to build a foundation for what you need to present to the jury, but it doesn't have to be a huge foundation. You basically want to get a foundation in for the things that are most important. Why are you there? Where were you standing? What did you see? All of that kind of stuff is really necessary. But this is an example of a bad foundation.
There was a few cars parked there, so it was like in the middle of the road.
Probably about right here in the middle.
Yeah, about there.
Okay, so I don't know if the record can reflect that I'm States 49. I'm just to the right of the mailbox in front of 43 Laurel Glen, pointing towards the center of the street.
All right, court will allow the record to so reflect.
So when you notice the car there, when you came out the no-go door, what path of did you walk out? Which way did you walk out? How did you get to where you
I went in this picture here, basically what would have been behind the black truck or in front of the blue truck under the tree line, and stayed on the grass and came down the side of the driveway.
If I show you 6, state 6, did you come out and walk kind of down this way, down along the cobblestone here
That's correct, yes.
on the grass?
Yep,
So if the record could reflect, Your Honor, I'm pointing towards the, to the left of the red bush on the left side of this exhibit, just to the right of the passenger side of the blue truck, walking along the cobblestone on the grass.
All right, court will reflect it on the record. Thank you.
And when you got there, where did you notice Tyler DeSilva?
he was kind of in front of that cement box, near the mailbox almost.
Show 52, this can help you. Can you show on 52 where you noticed the, Mr. DeSilva?
He was about somewhere in this area here, I would say.
Okay. And you noticed the defendant on your front lawn as well?
I did.
And where did you notice the defendant at that point?
So Tyler was around here somewhere, and Lito was, I was facing the other way, so he was kind of off to my left, like around here somewhere.
Okay, so if the record can reflect in States 52, Your Honor, he's talking Tyler DeSilva located just behind the mailbox on the grass area below what is now a tree in the exhibit, and that he's indicating the defendant was somewhere in the just next to the left red bush near just to the right of the cement square.
All right, court will let the record.
Yeah, that's correct, but I believe me and Tyler DeSilva were a little bit closer to the cement box when I was talking to
Tyler,
him.
where the tree is?
Yeah, around there.
Now, State 52, was this tree in your front lawn back in May 14th of 20?
No, it was not.
So that's a more recent picture, right?
Yes, it is.
Now that's Tyler Rich, the guy who actually threw this party. I guess it was at his parents' house. They were all down in the basement. And the problem that I have with the prosecution up to this point is I could have laid the foundation to get to the next bit of testimony with about 7 or 8 questions. And rather than go through his entire, footprint all the way through the part to get to this point, honest to goodness, you could have asked just a few questions, gotten a good foundation for any questions that you were going to ask after that. The jury is used to watching television, and they are used to watching things that get resolved in an hour. Even the most arduous of crime dramas doesn't last more than 90 minutes. And when you start going into that kind of detail, where you're tracing somebody's actions all around, unless there's something important that happens at each step in that chain, you're wasting the jury's time, and that's essentially what he's doing here. Then finally, we get to a point where there might be something interesting. Let's listen.
So when you noticed the defendant and Mr. Silva on your front lawn, what, if anything, did you do when you noticed them on your lawn?
So again, I approached Tyler DeSilva because I knew who he was, and I've known his cousins for a long time, and basically was telling him, not in a nice manner, but that he needed to get the F off my property and get back in the car and leave. And that is when he decided to continue to argue with me. And I said right to him, dude, I have known your family and your cousins for a very long time. Please get back in your car and don't do this. And he then responded and told me to go F myself and that I didn't know anything about his family and shoved me backwards.
Now, when that happened, were there a lot of people outside?
Yes, there was.
How many people would you say were outside?
Pretty much everybody there, so about 20 to 30.
And when you were talking to Tyler DeSilva, who was near you at that moment? Do you recall?
I do not recall.
Do you recall, was there anybody close to the defendant while this was going on?
There was a few kids near the defendant at the time. I'm not sure exactly who, but I do know that Ty Wood was one of those kids.
And how do you know Ty Wood?
Our families are very close. His brother, his older brother, and my older brother played football together. Have known each other forever. I played football with Ty. I was his captain when he was a sophomore and I was a senior. And I've also coached his younger brother's team, but Ty is about as close to a younger brother as it gets for me, and I look at him as my younger brother.
A couple of things are obvious here. One is that the prosecutor did not prepare this witness. They didn't go over the testimony. He didn't tell him, this is what I'm going to ask you. This whole narration about how he knew Ty Wood was completely irrelevant, has absolutely nothing to do with why he's there, which is to talk about how this crime occurred. And we've been going for about 30 minutes at this point, and we're nowhere near any kind of resolution on that issue, any kind of exposition, really, of what happened, where the fight was, and all of the things that occurred there. So I'm a little bit confused as to why they haven't done a better job with one of the people who ought to be a key witness here, who is the guy who threw the party. But maybe he's under jeopardy for something else. Maybe there are problems. Maybe there are conflict issues. I'm not really sure. But it's pretty obvious that he didn't do a very good job of preparing this witness for his testimony. The next guy is Aiden King. And Aiden King is somebody who was just there. He was there at the party. He witnessed a confrontation and the people surrounding the car, but he never witnessed the actual fight. He was inside when the fight went on. So, again, my question here is, why is he on the witness list? What does he have to offer? And we do the same thing with the foundation again. And this part right now, this is kind of madness. Watch.
Do me a favor, Aiden. Get close to the microphone and speak up. Okay.
All right.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. You a little nervous to be here?
Yeah.
Aiden, how old are you?
I'm 20 years old.
And do you work?
I do.
What do you do?
I work at a dog daycare in Shelton.
And how long have you been doing that for?
A little over a year, almost 2 years now.
And have you and I met on a prior occasion?
Yes.
And why did we meet?
For the trial.
And I want to direct your attention to May 14th of 2022. Do you recall that day?
Yes.
And why do you recall that day?
It was a traumatic day.
Now, I want to direct your attention to this. States 9. You know whose house that is?
Yes, I do.
Whose house is that?
Tyler Rich.
And how do you know Tyler Rich?
He's a longtime friend of mine. Grew up playing football together, high school, and then we got really close. So I've known him for a little while.
I'll show you. States 54. Do you know who this is?
Yes.
Who is that?
Faison Teal.
How do you know Faison Teal?
Same thing. Grew up middle school, football, high school.
States 56. You know who that is?
Yes.
Who is that?
Ryan Hines.
How do you know Ryan Hines?
High school football.
States 55. You know who that is?
Yes.
Who is that?
Tommy Connery.
How do you know Tommy?
Went to school with him, middle school, high school.
Finally, States 57. You know who this is?
Yes.
Who's that?
Jimmy McGrath.
How do you know Jimmy?
Met him through Rosie, who I'm friends with. He's just become a good friend of mine. Through
Who's
the
Rosie?
years. Rosie's his sister, older sister.
Did you go to school with Jimmy?
No, I did not.
Do you know where Jimmy went to school?
Yes.
Where did he go?
Fairfield Prep.
Faison, Tommy, and Ryan. Did you go to school with those individuals?
Yes.
And on May 14th of 2022, how old were you back then?
I was 17.
And what were you in school?
Yes.
And where did you go to school?
Shelton High.
And you went to school with Tommy, Ryan, and Faison?
Yes.
Did you go to school with Tyler Rich?
Yes.
Did you go to school with Ricky Fiola?
Yes.
How about Sal Perry?
Yes.
How about Mike Samperi?
No.
Do you know Mike Samperi?
Yes.
How do you know?
Met him through Tyler as well. He just come around sometimes. Good friend.
How about Alex Bernstein?
I met him before, yes. But did I go to school with him?
Yes.
No.
When did you meet him?
I met him one time prior, and then at Tyler's, I met him.
On that night?
Yes.
How about Charlie Connery? Do you know Charlie?
Yes.
How do you know Charlie?
School. High school.
How about Jacob Villalobos?
Yes.
How about Matt Lakovich?
Yes.
How do you know them?
All high school, middle school.
Now, on May 14th of 22, did you have an occasion to go to Tyler Rich's house?
Yes.
Why?
He was having a party.
Okay, and what kind of party was it?
Just the normal thing, listening to music, drinking, hanging out with a bunch of guy friends, some girls.
And were you drinking that night?
Yes.
And what were you drinking?
Bud Light,
How many beers did you have that night?
5 to 7.
And what time would you say you got to Tyler Rich's house that night?
Around 8 o'clock.
And did you start drinking before you got to Tyler Rich's house or when you got there?
When I got there.
And when you were there, do you know whether or not the individuals we just spoke about were present at Tyler Rich's house that night?
They were.
And when you were there with those individuals, what were you doing? Hanging out?
Hanging out, listening to music, talking, drinking.
As painful as that was, the defense did almost the same thing in its cross-examination, which merely underscored the state's case here. Watch this. It's just crazy.
This was a fairly regular occasion to get together at the Rich's house and party
Yes.
in this same fashion.
Yes.
You told us that you knew Griffin Marcinzik.
Yes.
Were you a part of the basketball group chat?
No.
Were you made aware that there was a basketball group chat that was going on
I
that
wasn't
evening?
aware.
And that there was some taunting and the sharing of the 43 Laurel Glen Drive address on that?
I was made aware of it, yes.
And you were expecting at some point that perhaps somebody might show up in response to that?
Yes.
I object based on the fact that he said he wasn't aware of the group chat. His knowledge is after the fact, so how would he know at the time?
Okay, I believe he's answering the questions, so he appeared to have knowledge. I'm going to overrule your objection.
You weren't a part of that basketball group chat, correct?
No.
But you were aware that that was going on?
I was made aware after.
Made aware after, okay. When you say after, you didn't know that Griffin Marcinzik was texting people that evening?
No, I did not.
How close a friend would you describe Griffin Marcinzik?
We're not extremely close, but I've hung out with him before. He also played football, so I've talked to him outside in school for a while, so he's a good friend.
And you learned from he and Mr. Hines that there had been some sort of altercation earlier at 5 Lazy Brook, right?
Yes.
And you're saying that you didn't know at that time that they were communicating with people that they believed had been involved in that altercation? They didn't explain to you that they were sending out the address for people to come there?
I did not know.
Do you know Tanner Chernowski?
I do.
How do you know Tanner Chernowski?
High school, middle school, I also played football with him when I was younger as well.
Okay. And you told us that you had met Alex Burnson once prior to this?
Yes.
What was the nature of that meeting that you had prior to?
The first one?
Yes.
Just hanging out with Tanner, and he brought him along. We were just driving around talking. It was just like a mutual thing.
So you knew Alex through Tanner, is that fair to say?
Yes.
And you said that people were outside, they came inside and they said, hey, this car just showed up, right?
Yes.
Did that surprise anybody there?
Kind of.
When you say kind of, did some folks seem to be aware that and expecting that?
Some did, yes.
And was there a fast rush for everybody to go outside and confront these folks?
For some, yes.
Did all 30 to 40 folks there empty out of the basement?
Not initially, no.
Eventually, did they all empty out of the basement?
Yes.
And
Just
you
about.
described that you walked down the driveway, right?
Mhm.
Did you walk down the driveway casually and leisurely, or was it a quick walk, or was it even a run?
It was a quick walk.
Quick walk. Were others side by side with you, shoulder to shoulder?
Yes.
How many people?
About 10 to 15.
Others behind you?
Yes, behind me, yeah.
Others in front of you, or were you leading?
I was kind of in the front, yeah.
And who did you expect to find in that vehicle?
I just knew about Mackenzie. I didn't know who else she was with.
When you went out to that vehicle, were you expecting this to be anybody that you had heard about already?
Yes, once I was made aware.
And you were made aware as soon as Ryan Hines and Griffin Marcinzik showed up. Is that fair to say?
A little bit after.
Okay.
The defense attorney here did, I think, a better job than the prosecution did. He didn't dwell too much on the who do you know aspect of it. Instead, what he did is he focused on the people who were around the car and what their actions were, and did you see them punch the driver and things like that. So it's pretty clear he's building into some kind of self-defense issue here. And I think that at the end of the day, whether that wins or loses is going to be determined by other witnesses. But once he established that this guy did not see the fight where he saw the confrontation at the car, okay, I get why you want to get that into evidence. What he didn't see was when they came back, in other words, after he walked away from the point where the people who did the stabbing supposedly had come back to try and rumble with the people who were there, to use a Gangs of New York phrase, I guess. Rather than concentrating on that, what he really should have done at that point is he should have established you didn't see the fight, you only saw the aftermath. We've already heard from the EMT and the medical examiner at this point, so why in the world would you need to hear from Aiden King, who doesn't know anything about medicine and can only tell what he saw, which basically was a lot of blood? There is an art to trying cases to get the jury on your side. One of the things that you do is you try never to bore them. You try to get in the facts that matter in a quick way that doesn't take forever. And I just don't think either one of these two is really read into that. It's almost like they're putting on a play between the two of them, and they don't appreciate the fact that the audience may not be interested in the minutia. The big deal here is that there was a stabbing, and we want to know why it happened and how it happened, and we want to know whether or not there's self-defense involved. Neither of these examinations really help with either of those two things, because the stabbing is pretty much admitted at this point. It's been testified to by a number of people. But the self-defense aspect of it has not been explored nearly as well as it should have been. And at least not in my opinion. And I don't blame that on the defense. I blame that on the witnesses that have been called by the state at this point. I'm assuming there are witnesses who can testify better about the self-defense aspect of this. Stay tuned. We're going to follow this case to the end. That's what I have for you today. I hope you found it helpful, interesting, or maybe both. If there's a subject you'd like me to discuss, please feel free to send me an email at the address above. If you like what we do, please feel free to subscribe and come on back to the beach tomorrow. I release videos every weekday, weather and work permitting. If you have the opportunity today, do a kindness for your fellow man. It makes the world a better place, one kind act at a time. And now, YouTube has some suggestions for other videos of mine that you might like.